Jack Bennet stood frozen in the doorway, keys still dangling from his fingers. The sight before him defied explanation. Charlotte Wells, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Innovations, his boss of 3 years, and one of America's youngest billionaires, was on her hands and knees scrubbing his kitchen floor. Their eyes met across the room, and for a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Charlotte tucked a strand of her usually immaculate hair behind her ear and said softly, "Your daughter has your eyes." If you're wondering how one of the most powerful women in tech ended up cleaning a single father's modest home, and why this moment would forever change both their lives, stay with me. This story might remind you that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen when we're at our most vulnerable. If this beginning captures your interest, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that reveal the extraordinary moments hiding in ordinary lives. Jack hadn't planned on raising 8-year-old Lily alone. At 36, his life had taken a devastating turn when his wife Emma was killed in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving him to navigate both grief and single parenthood. As senior project manager at Pinnacle Innovations, he balanced demanding deadlines with school pickups, homework help, and trying to be both parents to a little girl who still sometimes cried for her mother at night. That Wednesday had begun like any other, the carefully choreographed morning routine of making Lily's lunch, checking her homework, and braiding her hair before dropping her at school. He'd arrived at the office just in time to prepare for Charlotte's quarterly review meeting, his mind already racing through the day's packed schedule. Charlotte Wells was legendary in Silicon Valley. At just 34, she had built Pinnacle Innovations from a startup in her garage to a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. Known for her brilliant mind and exacting standards, she inspired both awe and fear in her employees. Jack had worked directly under her for 3 years, and in that time, he'd come to respect her vision and drive, while also noticing something few others saw, a profound loneliness that occasionally surfaced in quiet moments. The crisis began at 11:42 a.m. when Jack's phone lit up with a call from Lily's school. His daughter had fallen during recess, possibly broken her wrist, and needed to be taken to urgent care immediately. The timing couldn't have been worse. He was scheduled to present critical data at Charlotte's investor meeting in 15 minutes, information only he had fully analyzed. With no family nearby and his regular babysitter unavailable, Jack had no choice but to approach Charlotte's office, heart pounding as he knocked on her door. "Ms. Wells, I have an emergency," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "My daughter's been injured at school. I need to leave immediately, but the investor presentation." "Email me the files on your way out," Charlotte interrupted, not looking up from her computer. "Family comes first." Jack blinked in surprise. Charlotte Wells was not known for her flexibility when it came to work commitments. She finally looked up, her piercing blue eyes meeting his. "Jack, go. Your daughter needs you more than this company does right now." Thanking her profusely, he rushed out, unaware that in his haste, he'd left his personal tablet unlocked on his desk, the tablet containing not just work documents but personal files, including past-due medical bills from Emma's final hospital stay, an email exchange with Lily's therapist about her ongoing grief, and a half-written application for financial assistance with Lily's school tuition. The next few hours passed in a blur of hospital waiting rooms, X-rays, and comforting a tearful Lily, whose wrist was indeed fractured. By the time they arrived home, Lily was exhausted, her small arm encased in a purple cast. Jack settled her on the couch with her favorite cartoon and some ice cream, then realized with horror that his phone had died hours ago. When he finally charged it and turned it on, he found 8 missed calls from Charlotte. Panic seized him. Had he made a critical error in the data? Had the meeting gone poorly? Was his job in jeopardy? He called her back immediately, stepping into the kitchen so as not to disturb Lily. "I need your address," Charlotte said without preamble when she answered. "My address?" Jack repeated, confused. "Yes, your address. I'm sending something over for Lily." Still bewildered, he provided it, assuming she meant a gift basket or flowers, a surprisingly thoughtful gesture from his typically all-business boss. He returned to caring for Lily, who had finally fallen asleep on the couch, the emotional and physical toll of the day catching up with her. It was only then that Jack noticed the state of his home: dishes piled in the sink, laundry unfolded in baskets, toys scattered across the floor, and dust on every surface. Between work deadlines and single parenthood, housekeeping had fallen to the bottom of his priority list. He was frantically trying to clean when the doorbell rang. Assuming it was a delivery person, he opened the door without checking, and found Charlotte Wells standing on his porch, holding a large bag from a high-end toy store and wearing an expression he couldn't quite read. "Ms. Wells," he stammered. "What are you?" "You weren't answering your phone," she said, stepping past him into the house. "How's Lily?" "I brought her some things to keep her entertained while she recovers." Before Jack could process what was happening, Charlotte had walked into his living room, taken in the sleeping child and the surrounding mess, and set down her purse with quiet determination. "Where do you keep your cleaning supplies?" she asked in a low voice, careful not to wake Lily. And that was how, 2 hours later, after putting Lily to bed in her room, Jack had returned to find his billionaire CEO cleaning his kitchen floor. "I don't understand," Jack said, still standing in the doorway. "Why are you doing this?" Charlotte sat back on her heels, setting the scrub brush aside. For a moment, she looked almost vulnerable, so different from the powerhouse who commanded boardrooms and made seasoned executives nervous. "My mother raised me alone," she said quietly. "My father left when I was 4. I remember watching her try to do it all: work 2 jobs, keep the house running, help me with homework, attend my school events. I remember how exhausted she always was." She looked around the modest kitchen. "I remember the struggle." Jack moved further into the room, still trying to reconcile the woman kneeling on his floor with the executive he knew. "But you're Charlotte Wells. You have people who do things for you." A small, sad smile touched her lips. "And who does things for you, Jack?" The question hit him like a physical blow. The truth was, no one did. Since Emma died, he'd been handling everything alone: the parenting, the housework, the bills, the emotional weight of raising a child who had lost her mother. He'd been so focused on being strong for Lily that he hadn't allowed himself to acknowledge how exhausted he was. "I saw the files on your tablet," Charlotte continued, standing up and wiping her hands on a towel. "About the medical bills. And Lily's therapy." Jack felt heat rise to his face. "You shouldn't have." "I know," she interrupted. "I shouldn't have looked. But I did, and now I can't unknow that one of my most valuable employees is drowning in debt and responsibility while raising a grieving child alone." She met his eyes directly. "Why didn't you tell me you were struggling, Jack? Pinnacle has resources that could help." He looked away, uncomfortable with her scrutiny. "It's not that simple. I need to maintain a certain image for Lily, to show her that we're okay, that I can handle everything. And at work, well, personal problems don't exactly scream promotion material." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "So you've been suffering in silence, thinking it would somehow make you appear stronger?" "I guess I have," Jack admitted. "Emma was always the organized one, the one who made everything look effortless. I'm still trying to figure out how she did it all." Something shifted in Charlotte's expression, a softening, a recognition. She looked around the small house with new eyes, taking in the crayon drawings on the refrigerator, the family photographs on the walls, the evidence of a life built on love rather than luxury. "Show me," she said suddenly. "Show you what?" "Your life. Show me what it's like to be Jack Bennett." And so, somewhat bewildered, Jack did. He showed her Lily's room, where colorful butterflies hung from the ceiling, a project he and Emma had completed together before she died. He showed her the calendar on the wall with its complex system for keeping track of school events, doctor appointments, and bill due dates. He showed her the memory box where he kept Emma's things: her wedding ring, her favorite scarf, the letters she'd written to Lily for future birthdays and milestones. As they moved through the house, Jack found himself telling Charlotte things he'd never shared with anyone at work, about how he sometimes sat in his car and cried after dropping Lily at school, overwhelmed by the responsibility of raising her alone. About how he'd learned to French braid hair by watching YouTube tutorials. About how terrified he was that Lily would somehow forget her mother as the years passed. And Charlotte listened. The woman known for cutting meetings short and having no patience for small talk sat at his kitchen table until nearly midnight, listening to him talk about his fears and hopes and daily struggles. "Why are you really here?" Jack finally asked as the night grew late. Charlotte was quiet for a long moment, turning her tea mug in her hands. "Do you know what I was doing before I came here tonight?" Jack shook his head. "I was sitting in my empty house, alone, looking at quarterly projections. I have everything money can buy, a mansion in Palo Alto, vacation homes in Aspen and Hawaii, a collection of cars I rarely drive. And do you know what I was thinking about?" She didn't wait for his answer. "I was thinking about how you always have a story about something funny," Lily said. "How you bring homemade cookies to team meetings sometimes. How despite everything, you seem to have something I don't." Her voice grew softer. "Purpose beyond profit." The vulnerability in her admission stunned him. This was Charlotte Wells, the woman whose face graced the cover of Fortune magazine, who was rumored to be dating a famous actor. And she was envious of his life? "My life isn't exactly glamorous," he said carefully. "No," she agreed. "But it's real. When was the last time someone needed me for something other than my money or my company?" Before Jack could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. "Daddy?" They both turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily with her good hand. Her pink pajamas were rumpled, her blonde hair, so like her mother's, tangled from sleep. "Hey, sweetheart," Jack said softly, going to her and kneeling down. "What are you doing up? Does your arm hurt?" "A little," Lily mumbled, then noticed Charlotte. Her eyes widened. "Who's that lady?" Jack glanced back at Charlotte, who looked uncharacteristically uncertain. "This is Ms. Wells. She's a friend from work. She brought you some presents to help you feel better while your arm heals." Charlotte approached them, then crouched down to Lily's level. "You can call me Charlotte," she said, her voice gentler than Jack had ever heard it. "I'm sorry about your arm. That must hurt a lot." Lily studied her with the direct curiosity only children possess. "Are you rich? You look like the ladies in magazines." Jack felt his face flush. "Lily." But Charlotte laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle she used in business settings. "Yes, I suppose I am rich. But your dad has something much more valuable than money." "What?" Lily asked, intrigued. "He has you," Charlotte said simply. Something passed between them in that moment, a connection, an understanding. Lily smiled at her, and Jack saw what Charlotte had noticed earlier: his daughter did have his eyes. "Do you want to see my butterfly collection?" Lily asked, suddenly wide awake. "Daddy and I catch them and take pictures so we don't hurt them. I have a whole book." Before Jack could intervene, Charlotte was being led by the hand to Lily's bedroom, where she proceeded to show her the carefully labeled butterfly photographs, complete with facts about each species that she and Jack had researched together. To Jack's amazement, Charlotte sat on the edge of the bed, listening with genuine interest, asking questions that delighted Lily with their thoughtfulness. It took another hour to get Lily back to sleep, with Charlotte unexpectedly helping by making up a story about a butterfly with a broken wing who discovered she could still fly by believing in herself. As they tiptoed out of her room, Jack found himself seeing Charlotte in an entirely new light. "You're good with her," he said as they returned to the kitchen. She looked surprised, then pleased. "I like children. They don't care about your stock price or your market position. They just see you." She glanced at her watch and sighed. "I should go. It's late, and we both have work tomorrow." Jack nodded, suddenly aware of how surreal the evening had been. Thank you. For the gifts, and for. He gestured around the now clean kitchen. Charlotte gathered her purse, then paused at the door. I'm going to make some changes at Pinnacle, she said abruptly. Starting with our family support policies. And your position? Ms. Wells. Charlotte, she corrected. After I've scrubbed your floor and met your butterfly expert, I think we can drop the formalities. Charlotte, he amended, the name feeling strange on his tongue. You don't need to. I do, she interrupted. Not just for you. For all the parents at Pinnacle who are trying to balance work and family. It's the right thing to do. She hesitated, then added, and I'd like to come back. To visit Lily. If that's okay. The request surprised him. She'd love that. She doesn't have many female role models in her life right now. And I don't have many people who see me as just Charlotte, she admitted quietly. As she turned to leave, Jack was struck by the realization that despite their vastly different circumstances, they shared a fundamental loneliness, his born from loss, hers from isolation at the top. Would you like to come for dinner sometime? He heard himself asking. Nothing fancy. Probably mac and cheese. A smile transformed her face, not the practiced, camera-ready smile he was used to, but something genuine and a little shy. I'd like that very much. 3 months after that unexpected evening, Charlotte's sleek Tesla pulled into Jack's driveway for their now regular Friday dinner. These weekly gatherings had become a highlight for all of them, Lily eagerly waiting by the window for Charlotte's arrival, Jack finding himself looking forward to sharing the day's stories with someone who truly listened. As Charlotte stepped out of her car, carrying a small gift bag and wearing jeans instead of her usual designer suits, she looked nothing like the intimidating CEO who commanded Pinnacle's boardroom. Here, she was just Charlotte, the woman who helped Lily with science projects and stayed up talking with Jack long after his daughter had gone to bed. Charlotte. Lily called, running outside despite Jack's protests about her still healing arm. I got an A on my butterfly presentation. Charlotte's face lit up as she knelt to accept Lily's enthusiastic one-armed hug. That's amazing. I knew you would, you're the best butterfly expert I know. Jack watched from the doorway, a warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the summer evening. In just 3 months, Charlotte had become an integral part of their lives, filling a void he hadn't fully acknowledged existed. The changes at Pinnacle had been swift and significant: a new parental leave policy, flexible working hours, an emergency childcare program. Jack had been promoted to Director of Special Projects, with a substantial raise and the ability to work from home 2 days a week. But the most meaningful changes had happened outside the office. Charlotte had transformed from a distant authority figure to someone who knew Lily's favorite ice cream flavor, strawberry, who remembered to ask about her therapy sessions, who brought children's books about grief and healing that helped both father and daughter process their ongoing pain. And for Jack, Charlotte had become something he never expected: a partner. Not romantically, though he couldn't deny the growing attraction between them, but in the day-to-day challenges of raising Lily. She attended school functions when he couldn't get away from work. She remembered doctor's appointments and teacher conferences. She provided a feminine perspective that he, despite his best efforts, simply couldn't offer his daughter. That night, after a dinner of homemade pizza, Charlotte's first attempt at cooking, which had resulted in flour everywhere and more laughter than Jack's kitchen had heard in years, Lily fell asleep on the couch between them during movie night. I should put her to bed, Jack whispered, carefully lifting his sleeping daughter. When he returned to the living room, Charlotte was standing by the window, looking out at the quiet suburban street. Something in her posture, a tension, a hesitation, made him pause. "Everything okay?" he asked. She turned, and in the soft lamplight, he could see uncertainty in her eyes. "I've been offered a position in New York," she said quietly. CEO of a major tech conglomerate. It's the kind of opportunity that doesn't come along twice. Jack felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath him. Congratulations, he managed, trying to keep his voice steady. When would you leave? That's just it, Charlotte said, moving closer. I've been thinking about what really matters. 3 months ago, I had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. Now. She gestured around the modest living room with its mismatched furniture and family photos. Now I have this. Friday dinners. Butterfly presentations. Someone who sees me as Charlotte, not as a balance sheet or a business opportunity. She took a deep breath. I turned it down. Jack stared at her. You turned down a CEO position? Why would you? Because I'm in love with you, Charlotte said simply. Both of you. And no corner office in Manhattan is worth giving this up. The confession hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable in a way that the Charlotte Wells he'd first met would never have allowed herself to be. Jack crossed the room in 3 steps and took her hands in his. Lily asked me last week if you were going to be her new mom, he said softly. I told her it wasn't that simple. But maybe it could be. Charlotte's eyes widened. Jack, I don't want to replace Emma. You couldn't, he assured her. Emma will always be Lily's mother. But that doesn't mean there isn't room in our lives for you. In fact, I'm pretty sure you've already claimed your space. He leaned forward, hesitating just a breath away from her lips. I'm in love with you too, Charlotte Wells. Corporate titan, butterfly expert, and the woman who wasn't too proud to scrub my kitchen floor. Their first kiss was gentle, a promise of something new beginning even as they both honored what had come before. When they finally pulled apart, Charlotte rested her forehead against his. So what happens now? She whispered. Jack smiled. Now we figure it out together. All 3 of us. 6 months later, Charlotte stood in the backyard of what was now their home, watching as Lily released a newly hatched butterfly into the garden they'd planted together. Jack's arm slipped around her waist, and she leaned into him, the diamond ring on her finger catching the sunlight. Are you happy? He asked quietly. Charlotte looked at the scene before her, this family that had welcomed her, this love that had found her when she least expected it. The woman who once measured success in stock prices and market shares now found it in butterfly releases and family dinners, in bedtime stories and morning kisses. Happier than I ever thought possible, she answered truthfully. Who would have thought that cleaning your kitchen floor would change my life? Jack laughed, pulling her closer. Sometimes the most important business decisions happen outside the boardroom. As Lily ran back to them, excitedly describing the butterfly's flight, Charlotte realized that she had finally found what all her wealth and success had never given her, a home, not made of walls and possessions, but of love and belonging. The single dad and his daughter had taught the billionaire CEO the most valuable lesson of all, that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the hearts that hold you dear.